In this video we are once again at Hooton Park Hangars for a play with buses, and my friend David is here to provide us with some bus knowledge. But what I love about this one is we have two buses behind us, both from 1958. So this is that crazy period where the rear engine buses were just coming in. We tested this in an earlier video, but the front engine buses were lingering on. So why was it that buses like this were still here? Why didn't everyone just jump on the new buses?
Well, I mean, after the Second World War, Leyland introduced their PD series of double-deckers, originally with a 7.4 litre engine. That was in 1945. They only lasted a couple of years because that engine really wasn't man enough for the job.
Not quite up to it.
And everybody was pushing. AEC had produced a 9.6 litre engine at that time, so everybody was thinking, well, we need a bit more go here. So Leyland then introduced the PD2, and this vehicle had the Leyland 600 engine, so 9.8 litres. This actual vehicle has now got a 680 because it's been around a long time and 600 engines are getting quite scarce.
But funnily enough, just like the Atlantean here, that was also a 600 and is now a 680.
But there was also eventually a 30-foot version, the PD3, and between the two of them there was something like 8,500 of these vehicles built.
Blimey.
So they for a lot of particularly northern companies, they were, because there was a lot of, in those days the emphasis was very much on supporting local industry. So lots of Lancashire companies or operators would buy Leylands, and the PD2 was the backbone of a lot of fleets. Birkenhead in particular had they did have other makes as well, but they tended latterly to standardise on the PD2. In its original form, the PD2 had a gearbox with synchromesh on second, third and fourth. The previous model had been a constant mesh thing. It was a bit of a trial. So they put synchromesh in, but they quickly discovered that the second gear synchromesh really couldn't cope with the torque of that big engine. And the drivers managed to brake them with monotonous regularity. So latterly, they were all synchromesh only on third and fourth. Right,
so we've got the same engine, but very, very different gearboxes and the engines at different ends.
And of course, with most of these vehicles, under normal circumstances, you could usually start them in second gear anyway. You only really needed to go for first gear if you were trying to get a hill start with a standing load on, which of course they often were in those days. This vehicle has a Massey body. They were built in Wigan. Wigan at one time actually had 3 coach builders. They had Northern Counties and Santos as well.
Blimey.
So it was the centre of bus building in Lancashire.
So we got a Lancashire chassis and body. And
Birkenhead tended to favour Masseys, as did Chester.
But the fact they were ordering such a bus when these existed, what was the reasoning for that? Is it just, we know this is known technology?
It's the devil we know, I think that altogether, I think there was something like 49 variants of the PD, with, you could have vacuum brakes or air brakes, and you could have all sorts of different bits and pieces depending on what you wanted. And a lot of operators were very sceptical about these rear engine vehicles because they were heavier to start with, they were going to use more fuel, they were more complex.
Because you got the fancy semi-automatic gearbox.
Yes, and of course we've got compressed air systems now as well. I mean, quite a lot of operators, even quite late in the day, clung to vacuum servo brakes because they were perfectly adequate, and they were, these vehicles normally were only doing 200 or 300 yards between bus stops. It wasn't as if you were screaming down motorways and having to stand on the anchors. So the technology was very simple, it was very basic.
And very well understood.
And most of the underpinnings of the PD2 really had their origins back in the pre-war Leyland TD series, which had been around since the end of the 20s. And so operators knew what they were getting. And it was just basically a case of, let's stick with what we know. It's cheap, it's economical. we don't want, particularly for municipal operators, we don't want to be taking gambles with the ratepayers' money.
Well, no, very, very true.
Yeah, because you can bet your bottom dollar some councillor would stand up in the Transport Committee and say, why is it that we're having to pay all this money and these buses are always breaking down?
Absolutely guarantee it. Right, let's take a closer look at the mechanical package and we can discuss a bit more.
Right.
So yeah, if you're used to working on an engine here right at the front of the bus, I guess that's kind of what you're used to.
Yeah, well, of course, all this generation of engines, the same for ACs, Gardners, they were all designed so that most of the mechanical parts you would need to get at were all on the near side.
Yeah, all your filters, the injectors.
Yeah, there's pretty much nothing on the driver's side of the engine. Yeah. So it does mean that your mechanic can clamber in there and do whatever needs to be done.
Plus, you get an oil leak, it starts overheating, the driver's just here.
He's there.
So he's going to pick up on that.
He's soon going to know, yeah.
Yeah. Of course, the major downside being the driver gets all the heat and noise of having the engine right there.
Yeah, on a day like this, you wouldn't appreciate it. But of course, in winter, you'd be glad of the heat. Although, having said that, the exhaust on the Leyland engine is on the near side. Mm-hmm. If you had a Gardner engine, because the exhaust was the other side,
keep you warmer.
So you would get toasty in summer with that.
So this is the 680 cubic inch. So what's that in litres?
That's 11.1 litres.
11.1.
Yeah.
And what, probably about 130, 140 brake horsepower, do you think?
They originally, I think, were rated at 150, but in later years they managed to squeeze 165 brake horse out of them, although a lot of operators would derate the engine.
Yeah, use too much fuel.
You don't need that. You'll save fuel, and also it'll extend the engine life if you have them derated.
Brilliant. Right, let's have a nose around the cab. So from a passenger point of view, obviously the main difference is right behind me. We got a front door and a nice low entrance on the Atlantean, whereas on the PD2 we are still jumping on the back. Although I will point out, not when the bus is being held at traffic lights. It could be dangerous. The bus may pull away without the driver realising you're getting on, which is one of the key safety aspects, I think, that was an improvement with a front entrance.
Well, absolutely, yes. I mean, with a vehicle like this, you're entirely reliant on the vigilance of the conductor,
who's also got to take fares at the same time.
But of course, he has got a mirror always in the stairwell. The theory being that he can then see whether people are getting on or off. Before he gives the driver the right of way.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Massey Brothers, Pemberton Limited Coach Builders.
Yes.
A lovely old sign, but it's lovely in here. The smell, I mean, I'm assuming this is actual leather.
Yes.
It smells absolutely magnificent.
Yes, it is very original, this.
Yeah, and thankfully this will be useful today. A little window, so presumably the conductor could have a chat with the driver if there was anything to discuss along the way. Most half cabs I've driven, that's just a solid window, which makes communication quite interesting. But there's enough height here. I can just about stand up. I'm 5'9".
Yeah.
Only just brushing the top. It's a bit tighter upstairs, but generally not bad. But yeah, the smell, these beautiful lamps.
Yes, they're very much a period piece. They're jelly mould lights. You wouldn't find many vehicles of this era that had that type of but it does have one or two. These are an interesting feature. It's actually got ventilators. Very often you might have something at the front of the saloon in the bulkhead.
Oh, and indeed we have, along with this beautiful logo.
Yeah, but quite unusual to have ventilators.
Yeah, I can feel fresh air coming through those already. Wow. Yeah, a beautiful space inside. Let's go and have a look at the cab itself. Right, getting in is certainly not as easy as the Atlantean. I hope I'm going to maintain my dignity as I clamber aboard. Squeeze into the cab. And it is quite cosy once you're in there. I have to work my legs around the handbrake. But there we go, I can now bring you aboard. And look at this. We've got exactly the same horn centre, or not horn centre, it's just the badge in the middle as the Atlantean. But everything else is entirely different. Mechanical handbrake is quite similar. Look at the lovely old fire extinguisher, is that?
Yep.
Yeah. I've got opening window here so I can stick my hand out for hand signals, opening window here so I can get some engine fumes, And indeed, it looks like that whole window swings open.
Well, that is your emergency exit. If
Oh,
the bus were to fall over on this side,
yeah.
that's how you're going to get out.
Ah, better that than trying to get out the windscreen.
Well, yes.
Yeah. But I've got my own little light in here, a blind, so I can get rid of those pesky people behind, and the lovely switchboard here. Wow, we've got all the fuses, the bell, of course, as well. Your main communication with your conductor. And the speedo optimistically going up to 60 miles an hour. And importantly, showing our vacuum. But yeah, full non-synchromesh, rather, first and second. But third and fourth, we have got synchromesh. Let's go. Oh! Yeah, that needs a shove. So first, second, third, fourth. And where's reverse?
Lift it up, push it towards the left and back.
Oh, so next to second.
Yeah, the usual test is if you've no skin left on your knuckles, you know that it's
okay. I think that probably was
goes right across.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and my hand is rubbing across these cables here.
Yes, that was a feature.
Lovely.
Even on pre-war Leylands. Like
yeah, beefy. Got a horn here and indicators here. So you're going to have a mixture of hands for controlling various aspects. And we're going to get lucky with a windscreen wiper on this one. Yes. I think it's probably going to be best to hope we don't need that. It doesn't cover very much of the screen. But nonetheless, the good thing about half cab is you do get excellent visibility. You haven't got the folding doors obscuring you to the left. You can see where the wheel arch is. So you know exactly where your front wheel is. So quite a different driving experience, I should think. Right, we'll get set up. Let you clamber aboard and we'll get on our way.
Very good.
Right, neutral check. We've got the ignition on. Start the engine. There we go, listen to that. Yeah, it's a very different experience. Oh, my conductor's ready, I need to get going. Much more responsive throttle because there's no air, but the steering takes some doing. Quite difficult to maintain progress smoothly in first gear there. Oh, more turn. This is crazy. I think this is the same year as the Atlantean. A much more visceral experience. I think you'd feel like you'd done a hard day at work. This bus was in service until 1974 carrying passengers, but then became a trainer because to do your bus training and get your bus license, you needed to drive a full manual gearbox. So even though these buses were no longer in service by the mid-70s, it wasn't uncommon to see them in use as training vehicles, because then you got a license to drive a bus with whatever gearbox, manual or automatic. Oh, we'll come out of gear. No, it's just very high bite. Go nice and slowly to give me time to get the steering on. Blimey. Pop the indicator on. Yeah, everything is properly heavy. Double the clutch into second gear, indicator off. Synchromesh in third, so we don't need to double the clutch. And away we go. These are a little bit narrower, I think, as well than the Atlantean. Oh, now I've got to do double the clutch back to second. The only way to get a gear change without the clutch. Oh, now going right indicator. There we go. And now we're going to drive it on the motorway, back to our traditional route. Too slow for the Volvo. This enormous steering wheel, but you just need that leverage. So it's got vacuum brakes, but they do seem quite potent actually. Did all of 20 miles an hour around the bend. Foot to the floor for maximum acceleration. I've got the door open, so there is nothing next to me at all. Up to 35 miles an hour, almost. Yeah, there's a lot to think about driving a bus like this. I'm glad it's got good brakes. That makes a big difference. Don't think we've got to worry about the speed camera so far. But yeah, half cab buses I think are a little bit easier to place. You get a lot of echoey sound in the cab though. There's no sound deadening in here at all. So it really is quite a noisy place to be. But yeah, the synchromesh on third and fourth is really good. He says not being in gear. There we go. Oh, we've lost gears. There we go. There's a gear there somewhere. Yeah, synchromesh on third and fourth seems pretty good, actually. But it's why a lot of cars didn't have first gear synchromesh. You know, even into the 80s, cars like the Fiat 126, the Citroen 2CV, no first gear synchromesh because it was quite hard to make a robust synchromesh. So first gear is where the maximum torque is.
I don't know where you're going.
I have no idea. Oh, we gone the wrong way?
Yes, you're heading towards Birkenhead.
Okay.
41, but pointing the wrong way.
Okay. So, nice and empty, we can pull away in second. Oh, there we go. Oh dear, there we go. I'm struggling with finding third gear now. Yeah, this is crazy to compare with the Atlantean. This is so much more challenging to drive. I'm missing my little gear lever. Keep an eye out for trees. Oh, failed me test, rolled back. Steer, 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 oi!
Probably swing it round through that garage forecourt.
What, just here?
Unless you want to try further up.
Yeah, I should be able to get around there, shouldn't we? Get past this Skoda. Oh, my seat moved. An unexpected diversion, folks. Oh, a proper workout, folks. Oi. I've got my sat nav sat right behind me, but unfortunately I missed an instruction, so that's not very good. Put on the handbrake. I'm totally clutching out of habit now, I don't need to do it, but well, I think I've seen enough or experienced enough to know that this is a hard day at work compared to those lucky Atlantean drivers. They wouldn't have it all so cushy. When the Atlanteans first came out, it wasn't legal for them to have solo drivers, but when that rule changed, Bye-bye conductors, and now the driver found himself having to deal with the public. So 1958, a very interesting year when both this and the Atlantean were current. And then there were further rear-engine buses from the likes of Daimler and Bristol. And the half cabs began to become a rare sight. But yeah, oh gosh, really quite hard work. What an experience. On we get onto the moving bus. All good. So yeah, in the old days, you were just trusted not to jump off the bus. So now David's got to do all the hard work. Look at the lock. Imagine sat here right behind the driver, you could watch him at work. Toot toot, best day at work ever. Isn't that remarkable? Two buses, both by Leyland, both from 1958. Absolutely incredible. Look at this beauty. The revolution started here, folks. Do go and check out the video of this one if you haven't seen it already. Yeah, it's almost hard to comprehend the difference between driving on these two. That is a proper day's work. You imagine you'd be doing 5 hours before a break. You're like, no thank you. Whereas I think I could drive this for 5 hours actually quite merrily. It's an absolute world away. So yeah, the revolution started right here. Before I go, huge thanks to John Nolan, who owns all 3 of these buses that are kept here at Hooton Park Hangars. Don't forget, they've got their running day on the 2nd Sunday of August. Just checking, double checking. Yeah, 2nd Sunday of August. And I think the last Sunday of the month, they have an open day here at the hangars, and a bus like this, or even perhaps this exact one, will be doing shuttles to the train station. They're limited on parking here. So if you go to the train station, you get a free ride on one of these lovely buses. But there are donation buckets if you want to chip into the diesel fund. But yeah, absolutely blown away at that comparison. Not a comparison I expected to make today. I was planning to film these 2 buses and not this one, but hugely, hugely enjoyable. And I'm very honoured to be able to do this. So huge thanks to you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed that, and we'll see you in a future video. Farewell. Bus is a long way away. And now I'm going for a lie down. almost invisible in the sunlight.